Neil set a question with physical effort. They're all irrelevant. Instead, he studied the Russian jets, for he did not know that nearly half of them were actually Chinese, and such considerations were in the end irrelevant anyway. He looked at them from one of his many satellite pods, now tracking the fleet. They had heard news of the fleet as a series of complaints echoing throughout the world's capitals. The flotilla had announced itself to the world by thundering into Somalian airspace, then across South Sudan toward Cameroon. The Banana Republics had fired in anger at this violation of their airspace and sent indignant calls defending their sovereignty to anyone they thought might be responsible for the huge fleet. They had fired anything and everything they had at the jets, impotently screaming as their primitive arsenal had been rebuffed like so many arrows against the broad flanks of a dreadnought. As the news had reached Neil and his commanders, it had not taken them long to guess who the force really belonged to. They had pondered the lack of Tech-10 air units as they engaged the Russians in Hungary. Now they pondered no more. Minnie. Neil, if you have time, Madeline is trying to reach you. Neil shook his head. Things had become strange indeed when Madeline had to ask permission to speak to him. But his mind was protected behind a bank of ice walls, filters, and AIs that now managed his day. He opened the virtual doors to his sanctum and spoke with his first companion on the long road he found himself walking. Neil. Madeline, things are getting interesting here. Have you been updated by Minnie? Madeline. Of course, Neil. A hint of emotion bled through their link to his right brain. Anger and indignation at the implication that she should need informing of such monumental events as the impending attack on Rolos. Neil. Sorry, Madeline, I forget myself sometimes. What is it you need? Madeline. It's not what I need, but what you need, Neil. When you made the decision to send the fleet out yesterday, I retasked the resonance chambers here. I thought I would be replenishing the fleet based on potential losses from the engagement in Hungary. Anyway, I have 3 stratojets inbound on your position now, ETA 60 minutes, and 3 more leaving Japan as we speak, though I imagine those will be too late to make too much difference. 3 stratojets. It wasn't much, but it was 3 more than he had. 3 against 200. Neil. Thank you, Madeline. That is some very welcome good news. And sorry for the delay you had getting me. I'm updating my executive AIs to give you command override, just like Ayala, Barrett, and the others. You should have had it from the start. Far away, Madeline banished any remaining indignation she might have felt from her mind and focused on what Neil and the rest of her friends at Rolos must be feeling right now. Madeline. Forget about that, Neil. That is less than nothing. Neil, my friend, it's been so long since we brought down the satellites that I had almost forgotten what it feels like to be so vulnerable. You will be okay. We survived the satellites, we survived Lana, and you will survive this. We are all with you. Neil. Thank you, Madeline, but unfortunately I need to do more than just survive it this time. The spaceport, the elevator. If I could stand in front of it and die to save them, I would. My survival means nothing compared to the time and resources we have sunk into this damn island. Madeline did not doubt his words. His dedication to the task ahead was without question, to the point of fanaticism even. But where was there a more deserving cause for zealousness? Madeline. I know you would, Neil. We all do. But you don't have to. And you won't, Neil. You have to focus, my friend. I've been looking at these numbers. They aren't good, but they aren't without hope either. Leave Hungary to Jack and Ayala, and get Minnie, Quavos, and John's minds back to Rolas. Banu's too, if only so she can defend herself. You have 3 stratojets coming. Give them 1 each, and see if they can't even the odds a bit. Neil nodded, sending his approval back to her as an emotive thank you, while he felt her confidence and support as a warmth in his mind. Neil. Thanks, Madeline. Good advice. All right, I must go. Thank you again. Madeline. Of course. We're all with you, Neil. You are going to be okay. He agreed and thanked her again. Once the connection was broken, he sat back. Okay. He did not want to be okay. He was tired of striving for okay. He wanted to be in control. He wanted to be done with this fucking infighting so he could get on with the real work. He was trying to drag humanity up a technological mountain, and all it could do was scream and bicker and kick at his heels all the way like a gaggle of spoiled children. And now, two economic and military giants among those children had in their ignorance unwittingly conspired with the enemy and may have doomed them all. It was too much. It was treason. It was treason of the highest order. Even as Neil checked in with Minnie once more on their preparations, he saw that he could no longer sit by and wait for the rest of the world to get Russia and China in line. They had committed the foulest of crimes against humanity. They needed to be punished. Neil. Minnie, patch me through to Recon Team 2 in Russia. I have a new mission packet for them. Hector and his team trundled along through the Russian countryside. Hundreds of miles away, the country's military was being punished with deadly force for pushing the world too far. But here, deep in the heart of the mighty nation, all was quiet, and Recon Team 2 passed unnoticed through yet another town as they made their way toward the sprawling capital. They had been using their now passive subspace tweeter to monitor subspace traffic, and it picked up signs of very real Tech-10 capability along the route from the Ukrainian border to Moscow. Kara drove, her incongruously angelic face combining with her better-than-average grasp of Russian to provide good cover for the team should they be stopped. They had switched the truck's plates not far out from the lumber farm they had stolen it from, just in case the Russian police were unusually efficient. Now they moved into the city at a rumbling, agrarian speed that belied the power of their weaponry and training. They moved toward Red Square, monitoring and tracking subspace traffic as they went. They were stalking the subspace network, hunting its source. Closing in on the location of the Russian agent, maybe. They could not know. But as they broached the suburbs, Bodan was receiving new information and new orders. They had none of the vagueness of their current standing orders. They were very precise. "Sir," Bodan called to the team leader over the noise of the well-used diesel engine. "You need to review the subspace data packet that just came in immediately." Hector opened the packet with his mind, tensing as he read the simple order. He could not reply directly. He could not verify. He could not send anything through subspace for risk of alerting the Russians to their presence, but it didn't really matter anyway. The order did not require any further clarification. Dr. Neil Danielson, CO, Terrestrial Allied Space Command. Recon Team 2, new primary mission parameter. Locate Russian Premier Yuri Svidrigailov. Confirm identity and terminate. Chapter 44. The Hot War. The time for subtlety was past. They were coming in fast, and even the darkest of nights could not have hidden the shout of the sonic booms reverberating in their wake. They knew they would get to Rolos before it would have any of its stratojets home to roost. Now there was just the small matter of the 2,000 men and women of the Allied naval fleet between them and their mark. Far ahead of them, a band of destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and frigates were forming into a line, arraying their manifold ordnance at the eastern horizon and preparing for battle. "Captain Bade," said Admiral Cochrane from the flybridge to the Dauntless, "please have your teams pick and assign. I want target batches dispatched to the fleet as soon as they are ready. Fire at range." "Yes, sir," replied the captain. "We are assigning now, Admiral. Fire control, you have clearance. Attach fire at range to all packets." The order echoed throughout the bridge and onward by radio to the fleet, still taking their final positions in the firewall. "Comms," went on Admiral Cochrane. "Orders for Admiral Takano. Please tell the Admiral his submarines are cleared to engage at outside range. I want them to deploy their entire surface-to-air salvos in the first wave and then dive. There is no need for them to be exposed." On what that meant for the surface fleet. In most modern conflicts, the cruisers, frigates, and destroyers that made up Admiral Cochrane's task force represented the safest possible place to be during an engagement. Usually they were far from the hot exchange of bullets, and any enemy craft foolish enough to approach them would be torn to shreds by the array of weaponry the big ships